All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another episode. Well, no, it's not another episode. It's a first episode of a new series called POS Unleashed, where we talk about all things point of sale and where we bring people on to talk about how their journey through selling point of sale has been good, the bad, the ugly. And today I get to bring on someone who's been in the PayProTec family for a long time. He was our last inside sales person. Now he's all outside. He's doing it all on the 1099, but we did have an inside sales team at one time, and he was so good he hung on for a long time, but now he's doing his own thing, but still selling with PayProTec. Let me bring on to the screen on the right-hand side of your screen from about 2 hours north of where I'm standing right now, Mr. Mike Thornsbury. Mike, how are you? I'm going to start with the first question here, just kind of because I actually don't fully
Good
remember.
afternoon, PayProTec.
Yep. I don't know that I fully know this answer, Mike. Can you remind me? I know there was Keith that you got connected to Samson coming into the PayProTec team. How did you first connect with PayProTec back? I think it was in 2011.
Well, actually, Keith was the one who boarded me and started with my training, but actually I have a family member, an aunt. Well, it's actually my wife's aunt, Janet Smith. You probably know her.
Yeah.
It's one of Matt's. Matt is friends with her son, and she said, "Hey, you need to go over and talk to Matt. This sounds like this is something that is right up your alley and you'd have some fun with." And I went over and contacted him, and I got moved to Keith real quick, and then it all began.
Yeah. So let's kind of set the little further back. You've been in sales. This was not your first sales gig. Can you kind of give us just a short overview of kind of how you got into sales, how you fell in love with it? Because from my understanding of talking to you today, you come from a farming community, and how did sales become something that you fell in love with?
Well, hey, a farmer is the best salesman out there, I believe. So I sold meat. So, but prior to that, I actually did when I was 19, I started the door-to-door vacuum cleaner sales. And boy, that was an eye-opening experience, but it was fun. I had fun with it, tried to make it my own. I didn't have a lot of success with that. That was the first time, but it was fun. So that's what kept me going. Then I started in the veal business right before I turned 20, and then I would sell feed, and obviously I had to market and sell my animals, and I would market around, I had 4,000 head of veal calves, and I would market 10,000 head a year. And hey, I had to go out there and sell that and fight for every nickel I could get.
Okay. First of all, then
I went in.
Yeah. So to talk about I'm really intrigued. What are some of the things you learned when you're selling, maybe not vacuums, but veal and your own meat, that propelled you to be ready when you started selling to businesses and their credit card processing and eventually point of sale? Were there any things that you learned there that made you successful when you started out? Because I know you started out quick. Was it just your relationships, or was there some crossovers that the sales process you were able to?
There was a crossover. There was a crossover. I actually did in-home sales prior to coming to PayProTec. So that was the bridge that pushed me forward it helped me move and jump into the flow with PayProTec pretty easily. Now, yes, that was to homeowners, but the cool thing about that, it was a one-call close. So we had one opportunity to obtain that business. So you're very disciplined. You have your systems put in place, whatever those may be. And I just basically wrapped with Keith's training and PayProTec's canned presentations and everything. I just wrapped myself around that and transferred those skills over and took off. I had no relationships with, I had a couple, like my veterinarian became a customer and a restaurant owner became a customer, but then it was just going out there and cold calling. And I was used to cold calling from the home improvement industry.
So when you joined us in 2011, which predates me, so you joined the PayProTec team before, tell me what the equipment matrix that you were selling was back then in 2011. And then do you remember your first point of sale was? Do you remember that?
Sure. The Verifone terminal, was there a 511 or something
510,
like that?
Probably I think the 510 was the
yeah, the 510 and the 511
yeah
was what I started with. As far as POS goes, goodness, I didn't do any POS systems. I was kind of against those at first. It's kind of a funny story. I would say for the first 5 years, 5 or 6 years, I didn't even want to touch the POS systems. It looked too intimidating to me. But then somebody wanted one, and I knew this person would be patient with me and let me go through the learning curve with them a little bit. I couldn't even hook one up without any training, and I got through that. I think that was Hot Sauce was my first POS.
All right. So, because one of the things I first learned, Mike, you were amazing road warrior. I'll call it that. You every day you drove a route. Always in customer service, always taking care of your merchants. As you started to look at point of sale, those are more complex sales than setting up the VX510, 511, Verifone. You can make sure it has probably then you were doing dial up most of the time. What were some of the things what were some of the things that you learned quickly when you were selling a POS that you needed to do differently than when you were just putting in a terminal?
Well, actually, I didn't change the sales process itself. Big Bob, that used to be with us, said something to me one time that stuck with me. He said, Mike, listen to me. He said, this POS system is just a giant 510. Okay, well, so I went with that. So that didn't change the sales process. But what I had to focus on was once I got trained, I saw how complex those systems are. So I had to come up with a way to present that to the merchant once they agreed to board us as a credit card processing customer.
What are some of the things that were different when you talked about setting up a restaurant? You did a Hot Sauce. I'm assuming that was a restaurant, though. Occasionally, Hot Sauce is retail. Versus, I know you have a large network of liquor stores that you've worked with. What's been the difference between setting up for hospitality and restaurant versus retail? What are the differences for you there?
Restaurant setup is 10 times easier to set up than like a retail liquor store. Retail is a liquor store, I would say, is the hardest thing of all to set up that I've ever dealt with, just because each individual owner has their own style, and we have the access to these POS systems like Retail Cloud, for example, who has, they work off of an app, and there's not a whole lot of customizing that a merchant of ours can do with those systems. There's some things in there that they can toggle on and off, but the system is pretty much set to do one thing, and that's what it does. And they do it well. It's just getting that merchant to understand that this is how it's going to be way before this system gets placed. We have some time because they have to build these systems, and let's just say 30 days on average. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 5 weeks, depending on equipment availability. But that's the biggest part of it. Preparing that merchant for what's to come without scaring them to death. You have to say things like, you have this cell phone. Don't you just hate it when this thing glitches, or you have to reboot your cell phone because you lost signal, because all this stuff's going to happen here on the POS, and they'll give it right back to you. Yep, you're right, it will. So then there's no surprises. That's it right there. No surprises. Don't have any surprises.
It's setting those expectations so they understand there's always going to be struggles. Things aren't going to go 100% smooth. I've never heard of a POS installation, everything going perfectly, but there's always going to be little hiccups, and setting those expectations, how much they're going to have to put in to get it work. How have you decided?
I haven't had one yet. I haven't had a perfect installation yet.
How have you decided when to pitch the POS versus, you said somebody asked, that's how you first jumped into it, but do you have even on liquor stores, do you have a way that you estimate, okay, I walk into a liquor store, I get referred to a liquor store, man, I'm just going to talk to them about their payments and their processing versus I'm going to talk about POS? Do you have a way that you've kind of learned when the POS is the right way to lead in versus merchant services?
Well, I either case the joint earlier without them even knowing why I'm there, go ahead and buy something and kind of scope it out a little bit. But you identify what kind of equipment they have right away, and you just go into the conversation. I ask them why are you guys still processing the old way with these machines, and get the conversation going. That's been the easiest way to start talking. And they usually, it's inevitable. They almost all come back at you. Well, that seems complicated. I mean, they leave the door wide open for you. If you can get them talking, you're in.
Yeah. And have you found that what's like when you're replacing a prior POS, when they are going from terminal to POS versus going from POS to your POS, what are the differences there, and what are some of the complications that may happen when they're switching from a POS that they've already had?
terminal to the POS is a piece of cake. It's just like starting with nothing, whether they have a terminal or no terminal, or it's just like starting a new business. You have to build everything from scratch. It's better if I'll just use this liquor store as an example. Most of these people I deal with are a little bit older, so they don't have the computer skills that the younger generation has. So they have to have someone build a spreadsheet for them that has all the item identifications and SKUs and everything. And that even that kind of language right there can um, scare a potential POS sale off the table. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing right there.
What is the when you said you're
Hope that
working
answered your question.
that totally does. Well, and when you're working with an older clientele, what are some of your war stories? Are there anything that pops out of your head of like, man, I learned this and now I always, change how I present it or how I help them on board?
These guys are tough, Nate.
Yeah.
These guys are, a lot of them are veterans, and I have actually just lost a liquor store yesterday. It was a guy that signed up with me 13 years ago. He signed up 5 liquor stores, and he and his partner did this in one day. He's 75 years old. His partner's 85. They started thinning out their stores about 3 to 4 years ago. They want to retire and live the remainder of their life in peace. But those guys, now remember, you said I was there about 14 years, okay, and they boarded 13 years ago. So I knew about this much, and I tell you, they held me so accountable. This man named Chuck Woodcock in Kendallville, Indiana. Chuck, if you're out there and hear this, I love you, buddy. He's became like a brother to me, though. I appreciate everything he did. You're right. It is a battle story because those guys want perfection, or they were just messing with me. I don't know, but I tell you what, they held my feet to the fire on every word that I told them, and I had to make dang sure I didn't speak about something that wasn't true. Does that make sense to you? You have to
Yeah.
be precise with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. If they pick up something that you said, even if you didn't mean it, they're going to
You're
hold
done.
you to that. Yeah. And you've got to be able to follow through or they're going to go away.
Have fun with it. That's all this is. This is the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. I like the in-home sales too. That was fun. But this is just so much better because if I choose not to, I don't have to stand 3 hours in front of a liquor store owner. I can laugh and say, hey, let's go fishing.
Yeah.
I can't do that with a homeowner. I need to go in there and do the job. But yeah, it's fun. Just have fun with it.
As you're on this side of your career, you've been doing this for 14 years. You're, now totally in charge. You're not a W-2. You're a 1099 employee. What are the things like? What do you choose to go after and seek when you're looking for new business? Now that you're totally in charge of what you go after. How do you choose what you're going after?
At this phase in my life, when I went on my own about 3 years ago, I wanted to free up the every day travel to cold call and seek out sales that way. I still do that occasionally, and I make a lot of stops, but I'm focused on the service and the retention of what I have right now. I've built a pretty valuable book of business here with PayProTec, and I'm just out there fighting off everyone else to protect it. That's something we probably don't even have time to get into today, but just service them, babysit them, and let them know you're there. I mean, most of the time you're not even going to be needed for anything, but if you can pop in, spend 30 minutes with them. I've had other bosses tell me, oh, it's too long. You don't want to do that. Well, they'll let you know if they're busy and they want you to leave. But some of the people just want that relationship. And that's what's worked great for me.
What's as you think through all your merchants that you have, all the, proposals, what's one success story, a success story that stands out to you on the point of sale side? They're like, man, I worked really hard for this, and you're really proud of getting the sale and getting them up and running on their point of sale. Anything stand out?
Yeah, actually, can I mention cities and locations?
Oh, absolutely. That's up to you, but sure.
Okay. Well, in Columbia City, Indiana, I have a longtime customer who signed up 13 years ago. We just put a POS in about a year ago for him. He was with another company. He actually kept us separate. He would use a point of sale system, but then to process, he would use one of our terminals, like a VX520 or a Ingenico 3500, something like that. So he had 2 sets of books, so he could compare the two and make sure he was never getting ripped off. Hey, it's a really it's not a bad idea still to do it that way. You can sell somebody a POS to do their tracking, inventory, ordering, and those type of things, and process on a separate unit. But anyway, I didn't think I would ever get him to do it. But he has a partner in Kindleville, and I got into his partner's head, and we got that store going about 4 years ago. And finally, he submitted to me. He started having some problems. He had some capacity and storage issues with the current system he had, and I turned the heat up a little bit on him. He's like, "Let's do it," and that was the longest battle. It was fun.
All right, I love it when we get some live questions here. Dan Dayton asked the question. He says he has 2 questions, but so far I only have one of them. They're twice coming through there, Dan. We'll get the other question there. Are you doing cash discount with liquor stores, and how are you seeing that? We'll say dual pricing, cash discounts, edge.
Yep, edge dual pricing.
Yep, yeah. And one, talk about how profitable that is, and talk about what that process looks like for a liquor store. Because one of the things that when you're doing dual pricing or that, they have a lot of SKUs and a lot of different things going on. They have lottery, they have a lot of things. How's that worked with edge and dual pricing for liquor stores?
Well, actually, every liquor store that I have, I started out with around, I think, 40, but some things have come into this industry where these mega stores have come in. So I've lost some when my guys get old enough and they retire and sell out, just like that case yesterday. Yeah. I don't think anybody's ever left me because they were upset. It's usually because they're retiring and selling, and I don't get a chance to retain their business. But the edge dual pricing, I think the hardest thing to get them to, well, first of all, profitability. It's 5 times more profitable than traditional pricing, unless somehow you are good enough to get an extra percent over what the market's getting right now. And that's tough, as challenging as this industry is. What has worked well, I get some feedback from some of these guys. They'll tell me, what did I say that made you do that, Brian? And Brian would say something back to me. Well, you said, why should I have to pay for the customer's choice of using cash or plastic? That kind of stuff sticks in their brain, and like, why are you giving all that money away? Do you want to pay for their choice, or do you want the money in your pocket? And then at this point, I actually have some people that have been, I had a guy last year, this Brian guy that I just mentioned, that called me after the first of the year. It was tax time. And he says, Mike, I've got a bone to pick with you. And I thought, oh no, what did I do? I always hate those kind of intros into a phone call. And he said, I did not spend enough money in 2024. I'm like, what? He goes, there was $62,000 extra that was unaccounted for. Can you explain how I got that? I said, Brian, this is the dual pricing. It's almost like an unrecognized gain on your books is what this really is, right? Yep. So
that's awesome.
I guess that's the best way. That's the best way I can describe it. So he just bought a truck.
There you go. See, that is like a poster that you need to make. My customer bought a truck because they switched to dual pricing.
It's real busy in here, man. Wouldn't it be better having 3 people working, or instead of 2? And where are you going to get that money? Just leave it all open. Why? I can't afford that. Well, I can show you a way to get that money. Well, and the biggest one is always the biggest fear. I've had many of these liquor store guys say, Mike, why wouldn't I do this? Sorry, I'm getting a little excited, but I love it. Why wouldn't I do this? I look at them and I say, you're scared. You're scared to death. Fear is your number one thing you have to get around. And every single one that went to this program has come back to me and said, you couldn't take this out of my hands for anything right now. Because it really didn't. Our industry has seen this, one form of this, for a long time now, about eight years. I think I might have been the first person to write cash discounting for PayProTec. I think I started writing them at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And I would write them at 3.5% because I was scared. I was scared because, is somebody going to come in and, that 4% scared the heck out of me. Now I have people priced at 5%. So it's all relevant. It doesn't matter. It's just a peace of mind is all it is.
I love that. It's a mindset, and
it's a transference of feelings, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. All right, Dan had a second question here, so he got that in here.
Okay.
He said he's down in in the South. So second most of the liquor stores in his area use Heartland, AK Global. But the Heartland, what would you suggest a way to convert? I don't know that you would come up. Heartland's not as strong in the northern Indiana. Have you come up against them?
Oh yeah, all the
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
Heartland, I've taken a couple from Heartland, but the key to that goes back to the beginning of this conversation. Build that relationship and keep filtering everything in. It took me a long time. It took about not quite a year, but I mean, I would stop in and see these people every week, and I would stay and I would start talking about the programs, whatever was pertinent at the time. Back then it was traditional pricing, but it wasn't always about saving them money. You know, you don't want to sell on price. You get stuck half the time if you sell on price all the time. Build the relationship. I think it's the only way to get it to work. Because look, we're all the same. All of us processing companies, we process cards the same. We all have the same back offices. It's just a different face, and put your face on it and build that relationship. That would be my advice to you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
this big old ugly mug here, I can do it. Anybody can do it.
well, and what is amazing about your beautiful mug there, Mike, is that you have been persistent and followed through. And like you say, sometimes it takes a year, and I'm sure maybe you have stories that go longer, but it's that
Mhm.
grit and that perseverance that eventually wins. And you
Build the
have,
pipeline. Build the
yeah,
pipeline. Make it
and
as big or small as you want for what your needs are. I used to
yeah,
have one that was way, way too big for what I wanted to accomplish, so I trim it down a little bit.
yeah. And it also sounds you haven't specifically said this, but you keep talking about he had a partner. They had that referral business is, and I know this that you've gotten into some of the liquor store associations and that kind of thing. That referral part of that business is you never know who
I can tell you
that one
about
person
that.
is getting others. Yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
Okay, the first day, that first year, I stopped at a liquor store here in Indiana and met the owner, and I kept doing what I just told you to do. You know, just keep building that relationship. And one day he said, and he wasn't even a customer yet. He never signed with me at that point. He goes, you know, you really ought to go up and talk to this guy that is the president of this co-op up here in northern Indiana. So ding, ding, ding. I'm thinking, what's his name? What's his number? Get me a hold of this guy. Well, long story short, I got a hold of him, and he actually said, those guys are funny. These liquor store guys are funny. These co-ops, these big suppliers, you know, Budweiser, Miller Lite, they all pay big money to have these guys sit at these meetings, and they wine them and dine them. So little old me gets 10 minutes. Okay, so I got up there. Well, first of all, I'm in the parking lot, and I've never spoken in front of anyone before, like 40 different business owners. So I had to throw up real quick. So I threw up on the sidewalk, and I started laughing, and I looked at my little speech or my notes. I just wrinkled them up, threw them on the floor, and walked into it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be able to answer every question that they have. If I can't, I'll be able to find out. So calmed myself down, went in there, and we talked. They let me have about 2 hours shooting questions at me. And then the first guy that called me from the co-op, it took him 11 months to get back a hold of me. um, eight 8 or 9 months to get back a hold of me. He's still a customer today. I think he's very loyal. I don't think he would ever leave. They say, Mike, you answer your phone. You can't put off phone calls. You can't put off service. You have to match the service. Your reputations. See, I'm relying on my reputation right now because I
Yeah.
said I'm not out there running 50 cold calls a day. So, you know, I did that in the past, but right now I'm not in that mode right now. So I
Yeah.
hope that helps.
I think that really helps. All right, so we got a couple questions. Andrew Laka's jumping in here, and he first. We'll start with the more fun question. He says, "What fish in Indiana that eat corn?" Better, yeah. Would just tell us. Yeah, I know you're an avid fisherman. Tell me about your what you like to fish. When are you? Do you, what are you going after when you fish?
Any chance I get, Nate, that's what's nice about
Yeah.
living this lifestyle too. Because I can go out in the evenings and fish. I can fish on the weekends. I've been called off the lake on a Sunday to go to a little bar here in Warsaw, the Time Out Inn. I'm sure you know where it's at.
Yep.
I get my boat in the water, and 30 minutes later, the owner, Jason's, calling me and say, hey, I need to have this fixed right now. And I'm like, I'm on the water. I'll be over there in about 30 or 40 minutes. So off I go, fix the problem, come back and go fishing again. But I like fishing for bass mainly. I guided a couple friends that have a YouTube channel in Michigan. Do a little plug here, Predator Pursuit of Michigan.
There you go.
Um, we did a muskie fishing weekend, October 28th of last year. And I actually guided these guys and put them onto a 42-inch, 14-pound muskie. They were just so excited. We have the whole thing on video. We filmed for about 4 hours. So yeah, I love doing all that stuff. It's just a blast. That's my favorite though, bass. As far as fish eating corn, catfish and carp, actually, and bluegill. You can bluegill fish with corn. So not trying to be funny. That's true.
I'm,
I know
I'm,
you meant got to be more than corn in Indiana, right?
yes.
I'm sure that's what he meant. But
Yeah.
people
He's
use
up there
corn
in
for bait.
Duluth, up in the
Oh, he
northern
knows about
Minnesota.
corn, man.
Yeah.
He knows about bluegill. They have real bluegill up there.
They do. All right. And then his real question, he says, what POS do you recommend for liquor stores? Pros, cons from your own personal experience.
Right now, I've only used two. I've used Paradise and I've used Retail Cloud. I'm happy with. I wish we didn't have the. I wish hardware didn't have the problems that hardware has, and I think they all have it. Okay, so I think again, you need to prepare these merchants for what might be coming. My choice would be Retail Cloud, though. What I like about it, it has the enterprising feature where they can actually move things within their warehouse to their store or to another store if they have multiple locations. It's so user friendly. The support is really good. I think all the POS supports are good. The longer you've been with them, they start slowing down on that. I understand that just a little bit, I guess, but I just try to rattle the bush and push them when I feel like I'm getting pushed off a little bit.
Yeah.
But Retail Cloud would be who I would use just because the support aspect is the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think Retail Cloud has a great, especially for your liquor stores. I've heard great things about Corona. In fact, we have one here in Indianapolis, a liquor store. That's about 25 minutes outside, but just put in a Corona not too long ago. I think it's been about a year now, but they rave about Corona and liquor stores. So, but Retail Cloud's been there for a long time. And in Paradise, I mean, really for PayProTec, they literally built their liquor store integrations, originally for Mississippi, and have been, it's been a long time using a lot of Paradise for liquor stores.
Yep.
As we finish up, what do you think, what do you hope changes with POS? Gets better, easier? What would be, if you could change anything, whether it's with the POS companies or how
Number
POS
one
is
thing
run?
right now, I can hit this one on the head, Nate.
All right.
The government got rid of the pennies, right? They're not producing any more pennies.
Yep.
And this is the biggest. These liquor store guys are freaking out over this because they're all great bookkeepers. These are the best bookkeepers I have ever seen. They do everything on a daily basis, and when they're off a penny, it's horrible. We've been actually working with actually a merchant of mine and I are working with Retail Cloud right now with the development team to figure out what the best way to do this is, and it has to work. See, they work that Retail Cloud off of an app, so it has to work for every type of a retail merchant, but there's some specific applications we'd like to have in there in ways that it works for a liquor store. And if a different type of merchant doesn't want to use it, they just toggle it off. But it's tricky. You could change your pricing and have everything and the tax and have it all in the even numbers, but that's fine. That works on a single item purchase, but you start getting to multi-item purchases, and then after it calculates the tax, you don't know what that penny is going to land on. It's just a mess. We're working on it right now. That's what I would change. Somebody wave a magic wand and fix this penny dilemma.
Yeah, I certainly knew the liquor stores, but even thinking about that, the fact is how many liquor stores use their pricing as a way for their salespeople to know what things they're supposed to be pushing, what things are going to go on sale next week. Like I know one of the chains down here, if it ends with a 9, promos. All the promos are all, and obviously those are never even, they're not dividable by 5 ever. So when you have to be
exactly.
a cash, so. But I love that. That's a really good one. And hopefully, I know, because I know what a Retail Cloud would say, and they're big, because they're the ultimate proponent in all those giant stadiums that they set up with their things of going cashless. So that's the easier world, but
yes,
not going to happen in Northern Indiana and the 40 liquor stores you serve. I know that.
Nope.
So not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
Last closing words. Why should a PayProTec partner or someone just checking out PayProTec, why should they consider selling point of sale? And what is that added to your portfolio and your business because you sell point of sale?
Um, Retention. I think it's going to help me. It's going to help me keep these merchants because look, like we've demonstrated today, changing or putting in a POS system for a potential merchant, that's a big step. It's a big move. And it's not something they're going to want to do again in the near future. That's for sure. That doesn't mean you can, get relaxed and think you have everything in your pocket. Like I said, you have to commit to that service 24/7. Um, it taught me a little more patience, I think, with my merchants too, because I kind of feel their pain because I feel it when they're feeling it. I'm feeling it. If their life is easy, my life's a lot easier. If their life is stressful, I'm under stress. So it's really helped a lot, mainly from retention. As far as money goes, as long as you have them on this edge dual pricing system, the money is real good. If you write a bunch of business on edge dual pricing, you're going to go out there and fight tooth and nail to keep. Once you start seeing the money flow, you're going to fight tooth and nail to keep your merchants happy.
I love it. Mike, I promised you we'd be around 20 minutes. We went a little longer, but I thank
It's
you, man.
okay.
Thank you so much. Our partners are going to get lots of
Been fun.
insight. And thank you so much for not only just being part of the PayProTec family, but as a native Northern Indiana, grew up in Warsaw. I love that you've taken care of so many of those businesses and those people. And when you say Kendallville and Columbia, I lived in Columbia City for multiple years. And I love that you've taken care of those businesses. And there aren't a lot of people out there willing to do that because you've been on the road, you've been a road warrior, and you've been doing it now for almost 20 years. Thank you so much for doing that, Mike. That's awesome.
Very welcome. Have a good day.
All right. As we close out, guys, I'll just remind you, if you caught it at the beginning or catch it now, reminder, March 18th at 7 to 10 p.m. in Atlanta is our next live in-person to come hang out with the PayProTec family. We would love to have you there. You can go to join.payprotec.com, check your emails, RSVP. We want to see you in person. Thank you, guys. Bye, everybody. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next time on POS Unleashed.